Hi, I'm Bob Thompson, and I've had the privilege of serving as pastor of Corinth Reformed Church here in Hickory, North Carolina for almost 30 years. And now our church has begun the process of discerning God's direction for my successor. It's time to retire.
I'm Paul Cummings. I was called here in the year 2000 to be the associate pastor, working with students in the youth ministry and to start a contemporary worship service.
Linda and I loved raising our children here in Hickory. Our 3 kids are now spread from Hawaii to the coast of North Carolina. And speaking of the coast, we love the beach. When we're not working here, we'd rather be there, and we love that it's only a few hours away.
My wife Danielle and I also raised our 2 daughters here in Hickory, North Carolina. We love to be outside and take them up to the mountains. Within about an hour of Hickory, you can be out in nothing but the woods and see the beautiful panoramic views.
Most Sundays here at Corinth, we have 3 worship services. 2 of them are at 11 o'clock, and more often than not, you'll find me here in the sanctuary in this pulpit for the traditional service.
You'll find me most Sundays here in this room, teaching and leading in our contemporary worship service.
Then there's the 8:30 service, which is kind of blended music, but about 15 years ago, we figured out, you know what, you're preaching at 11 o'clock, I'm preaching at 11 o'clock, we're both preparing a full sermon, why don't we take part of each sermon and use it at 8:30 together?
And then of course we meet during the week and kind of discuss how our study is going, and then Sunday morning you might take the application and I might take the expository, or we might just switch either way.
So I'm really told that's one of the most unusual things that happens here at Corinth. People say, never heard of that before, 2 pastors sharing the sermon? One of the best aspects of Corinth is the longevity and stability of our staff. People come to work here and they just love working here, so they stay. I've stayed as well, but after all these years as lead pastor, it's time for me to retire in a year or 2.
We do have an awesome staff here at Corinth. I've been blessed to be here for over 20 years. And yet I don't feel called to be the next lead pastor here. I do, however, feel a strong call and desire to stay here and support whoever our next pastor is.
One of the best parts of my pastorate here at Corinth has been my friendship with Paul Cummings. God called him here 20 years ago, and I'm the lead pastor, but I have never felt like we were in competition with each other. It's a friendship that has grown deep and that is visible to everybody who is here at Corinth.
Before Corinth, I had worked on a church staff that was all smiles and unity in public, but through the week there was rivalry and tension. It's been refreshingly different with Bob. He's allowed me to use my gifts in student ministry and contemporary worship. We're different, but our heart is the same, to preach the gospel, to love the church, and engage in missions. I am looking forward to support and partner with whoever sits next in Bob's chair.
I'm Roger Young, president of David E. Looper & Company, a commercial construction firm and chair of Corinth's pastor search team. I grew up in Hickory at a Baptist church not far from Corinth, where my granddad served as a senior pastor for over 27 years. With my wife growing up Catholic and me being Baptist, we felt like Corinth was a great compromise for us. We continue to raise our 4 children at Corinth, and we have benefited greatly from the relationships that we have with Bob, Paul, and all of the talented staff members. I've seen several successions after long pastorates go awry in Hickory, but I think this one's going to be different. Bob has an unwavering commitment to help our new pastor become established and then move away. And Paul is engaged in this process and excited about the opportunity to begin a new relationship with our senior pastor.
Linda and I have loved our time at Corinth. We are not retiring to run away. Quite the opposite, actually. The church is in a great place with its unity, with its financial stability, a debt-free campus, a wonderful staff. But it is time for a fresh vision. I want to do my part to make this transition as effective as possible, and that includes working with my successor and church leaders to find the best time frame for an overlap between my ministry and the next pastor. After that, Linda and I plan to move away from Hickory. We've got family out of town. We want to be with our grandkids. But we also want to make sure I get out of the way to allow the next pastor to lead. What's great about this church is not just the visible assets, the great facility, the church staff, our lay leaders, the community that we live in. We've also tried to build a culture that focuses on the essentials of the faith as our unity, firmly built on the Reformed tradition of saying Scripture is the heart of all of our teaching. We work hard at not allowing issues that often divide Christians to be divisive in this church family. And that's the reason we can not only tolerate, but actually celebrate both traditional and contemporary worship services. It's also why we can stay connected to a mainline church while holding to the historic faith. If you wonder how an evangelical pastor and this church can remain in covenant with the United Church of Christ, just ask. It's one of the best God stories of my 30 years here. Our Corinth family includes young professionals, families with children of all ages. It includes empty nesters and seasoned pillars of this church and community. COVID has challenged us like it has every church across the nation and the world, but we're emerging resilient, anticipating what God is going to do next here. Linda and I are joining our church staff and lay leaders in praying that the next pastor will share a deep sense of calling to this church and love for this amazing congregation. As I keep reminding them, it was Jesus' promise to build his church, and he will finish what he started.